say this, we need to, once I make this instruction, I'm expecting us to move on
Yes,
to
right.
something
That's
else.
right. That's right. Yes, sir.
All right. We got two in the restroom.
For the record, too, I would state that from what we were given by the defense, we were given discovery at the date that we were given that at the jury selection. What was reported by Mr. Robinson was the exact same results that Mr. Felix has testified to here today in regard to .40 caliber shell casings and projectiles fired from the Smith & Wesson .40 caliber. The shell casings found from Nottingham, as well as the shell casings from the back of the Cadillac, were not fired from the Smith & Wesson .40 caliber, but were all in fact fired from a high point .40 caliber, not that Smith & Wesson. They're all fired from the same point. Robinson, what we were given were the exact same results that Mr. Felix had come to that conclusion. For the record, that was what we were given by them.
Actually, do I need to explain the case?
And while we're waiting, if I could bring up one matter that will save us time, I guess, after Mr. Felix testified, I have a couple of documents to offer at the conclusion of our case. And with that, we expect arrest, and I would announce that with this reservation, I guess. There is one witness, Adrena Campbell, who was simply in the chain of evidence for the different items in that regard. She was working at the police department at the time, and she basically took them from one location to the next. Obviously, with the chain of custody, that generally just goes toward the weight, not the admissibility in that regard. And these items have all been admitted that she basically transferred simply took them from the evidence room and took them down to the crime laboratory. She was in no way available to testify, frankly, in this case, and to come back, and she's out of state. She's a flight attendant now and has been doing that. We obviously finished up probably a little bit sooner in this case than we expected. She was going to be here on Monday and to fly in, tomorrow to be here Monday. That was the only day she was available, and we were going to call her out of order to do that because we fully expected this case to go into next week. So we would rest with that understanding. We may want to present Ms. Campbell, and if we're in the middle of the defendant's case, I think it's in your discretion. We may be allowed to perhaps, if we choose to call her, if it does go to wait, I know it doesn't go to admissibility, call her simply out of order at that time. It would be very quick. You would just simply say, this is items you had and you took them from that. I just wanted to alert you to that logistical matter that we had. Like that. So we would rest with that understanding when we're done with this witness. I have a few documents to basically put in, the death certificates as well as the conviction.
Yes, sir. I want to bring this to your attention. If possible, at Fort George.
Hold it just a second.
As far as your instruction, could you say, hey, disregard it, but as far as good faith basis, I was relying on my expert, and it had some good faith in it because he wanted to explain the case. So that's why it wasn't bad faith. I was going off information, so it couldn't have been bad faith. And he just said, hey, can you explain the case? So that means it wasn't bad faith. I was going off for expert that I felt like I could trust. So, as far as your instruction, did you ask me? I wouldn't mind, hey, disregard what he said, but as far as bad faith or good faith, I would ask that right there be deleted off.
I'll strike the word good faith and say there was no basis to ask the question.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, they're ready, bring them in. no basis to ask that question. With that, I'm going to ask another question.
Mr. Felix, the cartridge cases from the Kenny Omar Ray case, they do not match the Smith & Wesson 40 caliber pistol that I reportedly had on March 22nd, 2011. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The single cartridge case recovered from the backseat of my Cadillac and the cartridge case recovered from the Kenny Omar Ray crime scene were from the same gun, correct?
That's correct.
What type of gun were they fired in?
They were consistent with being fired in a high point 40 caliber pistol.
Okay. Did you recover that gun in the Omar Ray case?
No high point was ever submitted.
Okay. So nobody in law enforcement, do you know of anybody in law enforcement who have that gun?
I don't know.
Did you test that gun?
The high point?
Now, did you test the gun, the 6 shell cases and the one that come out of Cadillac? Did you test that gun that fired them cases?
No, I never received a high point.
The gun that I was carrying on March 22nd, 2011 was a Smith & Wesson 40 caliber pistol. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And the weapon that was used to shoot Mr. Ken Omar Ray was a high point 40 caliber pistol. Is that correct?
I don't know what was used to shoot Omari Ray. All I know is the cartridge cases found at the crime scene were from a high point 40 caliber pistol.
Okay. What's the difference between a high point and the gun used in the police shooting incident case? What's the difference between them guns?
There are two different manufacturers.
But they are not the same gun.
No.
Are you aware that I was robbed several weeks before Miss Ray was killed?
Your Honor, objection. This is speculation. How is he supposed to answer the plaintiff?
Okay. Did anybody in law enforcement tell you that Jadon Brooks told the GBI that Jacob was robbed and somebody shot in his car?
Objection, that's the same question, and now it calls for a hearsay.
Respond to the objection.
Yes, sir. Mr. Brooks took the stand and said that somebody robbed Jacob and shot in his car. And he said he
Your
told
Honor,
the
I'm gonna
GBI.
object.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Did you ever examine that Cadillac?
Examine the Cadillac?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
Why not?
The Cadillac was never submitted.
Okay. Are you aware that the gun was fired in that Cadillac?
I'm not aware if a gun was fired in the Cadillac or not.
Okay. Since there's a bullet hole in the Cadillac, would it have not been helped to examine the door?
Your Honor, I object. He just answered. He's not aware.
Sustain.
Are you aware how the high point 40 caliber pistol ejects the cartridge cases?
They do eject cartridge cases, yes.
Could you demonstrate how the high point 40 caliber ejected cartridge cases?
They eject cartridge cases similar to how a Smith & Wesson would eject cartridge cases, to the right and to the rear.
Is it at a 45-degree angle?
At a-
50-degree angle? Do you know what angle when you say that?
The angle can vary.
We're coming right and rear, right, sir?
Correct.
Based on the direction of the bullet? Okay. Well, you didn't do it in the door. Okay. The only connection from a firearm standpoint linking me to the shooting of Ken Omar Ray is the single cartridge case found in the backseat of
Your
my
Honor, I'm
Cadillac.
going to object. This is asking for a legal conclusion.
I'm going to sustain that objection. It's not that wasn't even a question.
Well, they saying that he found a shell case.
Just ask a question. I'll sustain that last objection.
So from a five-point standpoint, the shell casing found at the Omar Ray scene and the shell casing found in the backseat of my Cadillac, is that what connect them shell casing together?
Yes, they were all fired from one firearm.
The cartridge cases that were recovered from the officer shooting incident were matched back to the Smith & Wesson 40 caliber pistol. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you perform an injection pattern on the Smith & Wesson 40 caliber recovered in this case?
On the firearm?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
Why not?
There was, well, for one, it wasn't requested, and for number two, there was no point. You can't use an ejection pattern from a firearm to determine location of a shooter where the cartridge cases are found at the scene.
Okay, now,
All an ejection pattern will tell you is that a firearm using the ammunition that was used, in the position that the firearm was being held, in the grip that the firearm was being held, and the height of the person doing the examination, it will show how the cartridge cases will eject.
okay, but are you aware, I mean, you said right and rear, I thought I heard you say right and rear a few times.
That's correct.
Now, let's say if I'm shooting a gun and I shoot it from a different angle, when you read it right and rear,
Mm-hmm.
okay, would that also help determine maybe what he was standing at when he fired that gun, because the ejection pattern of that gun and with those shell cases, that can help us determine, hey, he was standing right here, right there.
In your example, did the cartridge cases bounce? What was the weather like? How tall are you? What's your grip strength? How were you holding the gun? What time of day was it? Was the wind blowing? What surface did the cartridge case bounce on? Those are all variables that need to be taken into account.
I want to just only talk about this ejection pattern.
I'm gonna check over that.
Okay. Now
The
again,
sustained ejection, he was answering that.
now again, you don't know what the weather like. Do you know whether the cartridge case is bound? You don't know that, do you?
Objection, I would ask that you just ask one question at a time. That's a compound question.
Do you know,
Compound question, objection sustained.
do you know what the weather was like that day?
No,
Do you know whether the cartridge case hit the ground and bounced or not?
no.
So, how could you determine where the bullet shell casing at, or what direction he was at, and you don't know if the cartridge case had bounced or not? Or you don't know what the weather was like? How could you tell us that?
I'm not saying that I don't. I'm saying that I don't know what the weather was like. I don't know these variables, which is why an ejection pattern can't tell you where a shooter was if you have cartridge cases found at the scene.
But when you agree, if he pointed this way, and the extra pattern, the ejection pattern from the manufacturer says right and rear,
Mm-hmm.
if they're going pointed like this here, that's going right and rear, right over their shoulder, when you agree with that.
Your Honor, this has been asked and answered.
Sustained again.
How many cases you did testified in, sir?
How many cases have I testified in?
Yes,
Approximately 135
How
cases.
many times have you tested the ejection pattern of a weapon that involved in the case?
Several times.
Okay, what makes this case different from the several times that you've done them other cases?
The submitting agency requested it, and when I explained to them the situation with the ejection pattern, they still wanted the ejection pattern done, so I did the ejection pattern for them.
Okay, are you telling us this prosecutor officer didn't want the ejection pattern done?
Your Honor, objection, argument.
Sustained.
But did this prosecutor officer ask you to do ejection pattern?
Your Honor, objection, same question.
Sustained.
Now,
Well, he can't know what they want.
what-
Sustained, ask another question.
Did you receive a phone call from them?
You're not gonna ask that question anymore.
What would the ejection pattern have shown you?
Had I done it?
Yes, sir.
All I could say in generalities is it would have ejected to the right and to the rear.
What else would ever show you?
Without actually doing it, that's it.
But you done done it before, right?
What's that?
You done done it before, haven't you?
I have done ejection patterns before, yes.
Is that kind of just common practice in your field, doing ejection pattern, you doing firearm tests? Is that common practice there?
No,
Is that-
no. There's no scientific basis for using ejection pattern to determine location, which is what submitting agencies usually request it for. So it's not any common practice or procedure to do an ejection pattern whenever you get a gun.
I thought you said you shot that gun in some water to stop it, see how it fired. I thought you done that test fire. You said 3 shell cases, you test fired, right?
Yes.
So when you test fired that gun, you didn't see them things jumping this way, that way?
Well, when we test fire them into a big net. So when I test fire them, all I see is the cartridge case hitting the net.
But you also see where them cartridge cases land there after you shoot that gun, don't you?
Yeah, in the net.
Okay, but don't they jump back though? The ejection pattern still performing whether you shooting it in this tank or you shooting it in the woods anyway?
If you shoot them in the range, they're going to go to the right and the rear. But when I test fired your specific firearm, It was fired in a net. So when the cartridge case is ejected, they landed in a net.
What net, what part of the net did it land in?
If the tank is here and the firearm is here, the net is all the way around the firearm.
Okay, but you said right and rear. Show us, demonstrate shooting it in the net, and tell us right and rear the ejection pattern. Can you show us that, please?
Okay. When I test fire the gun, the cartridge case ejects and immediately hits a net, so that way we can collect the cartridge cases so they're not all over the room. If you fired the gun in a range, all I can say is the Smith & Wesson manufacturer intends for the gun to be fired. When you fire the gun, ejects to the right and to the rear. As far as the angle or the distance, I can't tell you that.
Okay. How many cartridge cases can a Smith & Wesson .40 caliber pistol hold?
Well, this particular firearm can hold 14 cartridges in the magazine and 1 cartridge in the chamber, so a total of 15.
Total 15. How many cartridge cases were fired on Sycamore Drive?
Oh,
I'm going to object to that. I think he needs to lay a foundation for that. He didn't work that hard.
How many shell cases did you find at Sycamore Drive?
Objection, Your Honor, it's misleading. He didn't find any. He's the example.
How many shell cases did you test? Do your microscopic examination on from Sycamore Drive?
4 cartridge cases.
4 cartridge cases. Where they come from?
The Christensen-Howard scene.
Okay. Did it come from that Smith & Wesson gun you showed today?
Yes, they were fired from the Smith & Wesson.
How many bullets did that gun hold?
The gun can hold a total of 14 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber.
Okay, so you had 14. How many did you said 8 was left over, right?
8 live rounds were submitted.
Okay, 8 live rounds submitted. How fast can you fire a weapon?
As fast as you can pull a trigger.
Okay, so it was 8, you found 8 left, is that correct, sir?
8. There were 8 live rounds submitted, yes.
Okay, and that gun still was able to shoot, right? Right at this present time, that gun still able to shoot?
The gun was still functional, yes.
It still functional. So if I wanted to, I could have shot more time, at
Your
least 8 more
Honor, I
time, right?
object to what he wants to do. This witness can't know that speculation.
Sustained.
Okay, is it possible that that weapon had the potential to fire 8 more shots then?
If the cartridges that were submitted were in the magazine, then yes, there were potential to fire 8 more times.
So you telling us you can't, you personally, off your opinion, don't have no position or where I was standing at with them shots were fired during this police shooting incident?
Based on the cartridge cases, I can't say where any shooter was.
With all, do you think with all experts agree with your opinion, or there can be some other opinion on that?
Your Honor, objection, he can't know what all experts are going to do in speculation.
Sustained.
I'd like to see State's Exhibit. 329, 323, 290, 305, 458, 329. And I like also State's Exhibit 669 and 670, 676, 679, 180, 1151, 1093, 88.
Is that it?
I think so.
Get those numbers.
Those are labeled as shell casings, yes.
Now, if them shell casings, will you agree that they very close to this car?
They are close to the car, yes.
Okay, them shell casings close to that car, what they tell you?
Absolutely nothing, that they're close to the car,
Why would a shell casing be that close to a car?
because that's where they ended up.
Now, when you agree they ended up that close to that car, because the shooter had to be extremely close to this car, this one?
No, I can't use the shell casings to determine position.
Okay, this just say, if I'm the shooter, shoot a gun 10 yards off that car, when you agree that them shell casings won't be that close to that car?
I can't agree to that. I can't use shell casing to determine position.
Okay, but when you say it right in real, right, just say if I'm, that door over there, that flag over there, if I shoot from right here to that flag, is them shell casings gonna jump over there, that flag, or they gonna go right in real this way?
Your Honor, the witnesses answered repeatedly this question and cannot tell the shooter and
The
stand by.
objection is sustained. It's been asked and answered.
I would just demonstrate with some visual here, because I'm trying to get some vision on it. Because Judge, if
But
you
the answer has been given several times.
Okay. Now, how long you been an expert?
7 to 8 years.
7, 8 years. And you can't, these shell cases don't give you no indication how close it is. You
Your Honor, objection
Sustained.
and answer.
Okay, let's look right here. This one eye. Was your bullet, did you find any indication that them bullets were coming from the back? You testified that them bullets couldn't have come from the backside, is that right?
Based on the trajectory, no, not from the back, around the window.
With more of this front with area like this, would you agree? Kind of right in this one area, kind of from the front with area like?
No, that's safety glass. So how the glass breaks is not going to determine position.
But
All it says is that something hit it.
okay. Now, when you agree that the bullet hole had to enter somewhere in this front area because we don't see no bullet hole back in the back area, would you agree with that, sir?
Well, yes, if there's no bullet hole in that intact portion, then yes, it would come from the missing portion.
Okay, so them bullet had to come somewhere in this missing portion, right?
Well, the entry would have had to been yes.
Okay. Now, when you agree Mr. Chris was sitting in his car,
Say that again?
he was sitting in his car.
In the driver's seat, yes.
Okay. Now, when you agree that one of the shots hit him right here, up under his vest, right up under his vest, right here in his chest area.
There was a shot, yes.
Okay. Now, when you agree that the chest area right along here or somewhere right along around here, if you sit in that car.
I don't know how tall he was, so I don't know his position of his chest to his window.
But he wasn't sitting on the floor, was he?
He was sitting on a seat, yes.
Okay then. Now, you said one bullet hit the seat of the car, is that correct?
The passenger seat,
The
yes.
passenger seat. Now, if you somebody had to put a trajectory rod in that passenger seat, when that had told you that this straight path that this bullet was coming from,
I'm sorry, say that again?
are you familiar with a trajectory rod?
Yes.
Well, tell us what a trajectory rod is.
A trajectory rod is basically a solid rod that is used in crime scene reconstruction to determine the approximate trajectory of a bullet. If you have several points of contact, such as where the bullet ends up, such as a passenger seat, if you have any intermediate objects, such as the neck of an officer, and if you have anything else, such as a window, you can use that to determine the approximate trajectory of a bullet.
Okay. Did you have any evidence that a trajectory rod was used in Officer Christian's car to determine the path of that bullet?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, did you find that mysterious?
Not at all.
Okay, but when you agree it would have helped you determine the straight path the bullet will come from, would it help you form your opinion?
It could have made a more accurate position, yes, but I don't know if it would have helped or not.
Okay. Now, so there was only one bullet found in this car that hit something other than Mr. Christian.
Yes, one bullet found in the car.
Okay. Did you do any other examination on this car or crime scene to help you get any specifics about your opinion?
Under objection, he's ready to testify. He analyzed.
That's sustained.
All right, if you look at State Exhibit 323, sir. Now, this shell casing right, this placard right here is number 1, right?
Looks like a number one, yes.
Okay. When you agree that when you found this shell, where they found the shell casing and you looked at it at?
That's where they labeled the shell casing is coming from.
Okay. Now, what would that tell you? That shell casing landing right there. What would?
Your Honor, Under objection, asked and answered.
I object, Judge, I had showed him this
He's
picture.
objecting, you can respond to
Okay, I'm
the judge.
sorry. Judge, I did not ask and answer because I just put this picture up and asked him about it. This Officer Howard, I'm not referring to Officer Christian, so it couldn't have been asked and answered.
What was the question?
I was asking him, what is number one on this placard and what do they tell him on this picture? This is my first time asking because I just put this picture up there.
That has been asked and answered. It's not critical as to who asked it, as long as somebody asked it and it's been answered, it's asked and answered.
With all respect.
I'm sustaining the
Okay,
objection.
but for the record, with all respect, Judge, I can ask what question that I want. I don't have to come here and ask a different question because they didn't ask it. I'm in a thorough, sifted cross-examination.
And I sustain the objection.
Okay, but
Ask
I
another
just want to
question.
state it for the record, though.
It's noted.
And you're an expert, sir, you stated, right?
I am an expert, yes.
Okay, you said right in rear of the manufacturer shooting that. I mean, that's what they said. It does, that Smith and Wesson right in rear, right?
Correct.
Okay, is it possible that a gunshot from an angle on this car would cause this shell to land over here if it's right in rear?
Your Honor, again, I'm going to object, asked and answered. This witness has emphatically stated he can't tell where a shooter is based on where shell casing is placed.
He asked if it was possible. I'll allow the question.
It is possible that cartridge case could land there if the gun is to the right and to the rear. The gun could fire the cartridge case. The cartridge case can hit the concrete and bounce and end up resting there where that's at. It could also have been kicked if somebody came near the car and kicked the cartridge case. Those are factors that you'd have to consider. So yes, it's possible somebody can shoot near the car and have the cartridge case end up by the tire. It is possible.
Okay, did you see a cartridge case on the driver's seat of Officer Howard's car?
I wasn't at the scene. All I received was evidence to examine.
Okay. Did you examine any evidence showing that a shell casing was on the seat of Officer Howard's patrol car?
I don't recall there being a cartridge case, but I don't know the exact locations of all the cartridge cases.
So are you telling us you didn't receive no pictures or no evidence to examine that a shell casing on the front seat of Howard's patrol car?
I didn't see one, no.
Okay, but if just say it was on the front seat of his car, how would that have got on his front seat and a gunshot was on it? Somebody shot him. Just say if I shot him, how would the shell casing would have ended up on his front seat?
I don't know. There's a ton of possibilities. Like I said, where the cartridge case lands, you can't determine where a shooter's position would be.
Now, did you say that it's right in rear, the manufacturing ejection pattern right in rear?
Correct.
Sir? Okay, so if the ejection pattern right in rear, how did it end up on his front seat?
I don't know. Like I said, I can't determine position based on position of cartridge cases.
Okay, let's talk clothing and gunpowder. You familiar with gunpowder and clothing?
Yes.
Okay, could you tell us how gunpowder stick on clothing?
When a firearm is fired, behind the bullet is all of the unburned gunpowder and vaporous lead that gets thrown out of the muzzle of the barrel behind the firearm. So if the target is close enough, that unburned gunpowder will adhere to a victim's clothing and form basically a gunpowder pattern.
Okay, how about skin? If you're close enough, would them gunpowder stippling or soot get on the skin if that gun close enough to you when it shot on you?
If it's close enough, stippling can happen, yes.
Okay, how close it have to be?
The medical examiner is a more appropriate expert for stippling.
So I thought you said you was an expert about gunshot and powder and
Objection argumentative. He just answered the question.
so
Sustained.
you don't have no way as an expert or telling us how far you have to be far on something or far from something to tell us where the gunshot get on somebody?
My expertise is in unburned gunpowder on clothing. The medical examiner is a better expert on gunpowder and stippling.
Okay, let's talk clothing then, your field. How far? An inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, a foot, 2 foot, what it is?
For what?
Gunpowder get on clothing.
It depends on the gun, it depends on the ammunition, but in generalities, it's between 3 to 5 feet closer, or lower than 3 to 5 feet to see gunpowder on clothing.
Okay. Could you demonstrate 3 to 5 feet? Give me something of a visual.
Does anybody have a ruler?
Okay. No ruler?
Ask another question.
So if I shot Officer Howard and I'm close to him, within 3 to 5 feet, it'd have been gunpowder on his clothing, what you're telling us.
There could or there couldn't have been. Was there an intervening object between the two?
Okay, no.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to his testimony.
He asked, and
You ask, he answers. Thank you.
okay. How about the face? If gone within 3 to 5 feet, would gunpowder, stippling get on the face, stippling and get on the face?
For stippling, you'd have to ask the medical examiner. They're going to know the distances better than myself.
So if I had to say 3 to 5 feet, it's possible that gunpowder, stippling would get on his face if he was close enough.
I'm going to object, that's misleading. He just said the medical examiner.
Sustained.
I say it's possible. I didn't ask him what it specific.
Sustained the objection.
Did anybody ask you to view a picture of Officer Howard's face so you can determine how close this gunshot was on it?
For any stippling? No.
So they gave you pictures of Officer Christian, but they didn't give you pictures of Tony Howard. That's what you telling us.
Under objection, that's misleading. There are no pictures of Officer Howard. He was taken to the emergency room.
Sustained.
This guy be hurt. Please.
Ask another question.
Well, why they didn't give you no picture of Officer Tony Howard then?
Objection, Your Honor. This is, again, misleading. There are no pictures.
That's why it's sustained.
Jim, they saying, how can we know it ain't no picture when they didn't show them? That's what I'm saying. They got all these pictures of Officer Christian. Why they won't show no picture of Tony Howard? They'll tell us where he was shot at, or we see that where we would have saw the gunpowder. That's what I've been trying to say the whole time.
Mr. Hood, the objection is sustained.
Would have been helpful in having an opinion on your expertise if you had some pictures.
For myself?
Yes, sir.
No. If he was shot in the face, there's no clothing around it. And if there's no clothing, then that's not my area of expertise. My area of expertise is on gunshot residue on clothing.
Well, did you view his uniform? He was shot in his shoulder. They say he was shot in his left shoulder. Did anybody ask you to look at that uniform to see if you see some gunpowder or stipplings on it?
No.
Did you ask for it?
No.
Why not?
Because neither the prosecution nor the defense asked for any request to do a distance determination.
Who you my witness or you the prosecution witness?
Both yours. You both subpoenaed me.
You know, who?
Both of you.
You was on there?
I'm on your...
Well, I stand corrected on it. I don't know how you got on there.
Your Honor,
I stand corrected.
Ask the question, please.
I stand corrected. When you said trigger pull on the gun, what you say it for?
The trigger pull of the firearm, which is the amount of pressure it takes to pull the trigger and cause the gun to fire, it was between 10 to 11 pounds.
Okay. How did you determine that?
What we do is we take a spring-loaded trigger pull gauge, we take the firearm, and we insert the gauge and insert it in a spot where the finger would normally rest on a trigger. And then with the trigger pull gauge, which is calibrated, we pull back until the trigger is pulled, and then we measure the amount of pounds read on the gauge.
Is that hard to do? 10, 11 pounds, whatever you said, ounces a pound, what was it?
It was pounds.
Okay, is that hard to do?
It's not hard to do, but it's not easy.
How can you determine hard or easy? Is that kind of speculation all depending on who you are?
objection, argument.
Well, I'm not objecting myself. I'm asking him, is it hard? It might be hard for him, but it might not be hard for me. I'm trying to figure out.
That is true. What might be hard for me might be easy for you.
So you just can't say what was hard for me, was you? You can't say that.
No.
Okay. pseudo-stippling. Are you familiar with that term?
I've heard the term, yes, but I'm not an expert in stippling.
Okay. It's firing a gun on glass. What do you know about stippling, sir?
All I know is that stippling is when the gun is fired and the gunpowder hits the skin will either embed the gunpowder will either embed into the skin, or it will hit the skin and cause a sort of little mini welt or red mark, kind of like getting hit with a paintball. It's going to leave a little welt, and that's what stippling is.
Pseudo-stippling comes from glass. Will you agree with that?
I'm going to object to this line of questioning. He's indicating he's not an expert in the area of matters of the skin.
What was the question?
Just one follow-up. You were asked several questions about high-point weapon. Are you familiar with how many rounds a high-point weapon holds?
The high point actually has several different models. So some models will actually hold more rounds than others. They also make several different magazine sizes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
For the record, you did not find no high-point pistol on the Monterey case. Is that what you're telling the jury today?
That's correct. No high point was submitted.
No further questions.
May you be excused. Subject to recall.
Mr. Step down.
Subject to recall. All for subject to recall.
Mr. Long?
Yes, Your Honor. I have several documents. First of all, I have State Exhibit 1162. It's a certified death certificate of Kenneth Lamar Ray. Date of birth of December 11th, 1980, and date of death December 28th, 2010. State Exhibit 1163 is certificate, certified death certificate of Elmer Christian III.
Excuse me,
Give me the date.
Let him finish.
Date of birth, July 11th, 1976. Date of death, March 22nd, 2011. I would tender those documents into evidence at this time, Judge.
Now, is there an objection? No objection. They're admitted.
In addition, Judge, I have State Exhibit 1164, which is a certified copy of conviction involving State versus Jamie Hood for armed robbery. SU 97 CR 0877, Superior Court of Clark County, in which the defendant was found guilty in March of 1999 and was sentenced at that time of March the 3rd, 1999 to 12 years confinement by Judge Steve Jones of the Superior Court. And I would tender that particular item into evidence at this time.
Any objection?
I won't have no objection if he let me come in and use a report on that, explain I can use witnesses. If he gonna use this, I get to bring my witnesses in here and to explain what happened, why it happened.
I've already ruled on that. Is there any objection to the admissibility of the evidence?
Well, I object. If I can't say that, you can't introduce it.
Yes, admitted over objection.
With that, Judge, the state would rest subject to what we discussed earlier. In addition, over lunch, I sent them a break. We wanted to make sure we go through the exhibits with full order to make sure that all items that we believe that we had submitted into evidence have actually been submitted into evidence, just with that reservation. But other than that, at this time, the state rests.
All right. I'll let y'all go to the jury room. I'll take you back over there to lunch, somebody will. And I'll have to figure out what time. You may have a little bit longer, but I'm not sure yet. But then when you come back, we'll begin